Hate you. Okay, so when I explain, now bear with, guys. I'm not some edgelord. You know me. There is method to my thinking. When I explain why I don't like Black Panther, you will understand. So I'm going to start off with a couple caveats. For anybody who's just new, I've been explaining why we're going through the MCU films. And I've been explaining why Captain America Civil War is a better film than you think. And also why it's partially responsible for Black Panther not being so good. So, we need to get some side caveats out the way for safety reasons. Black Panther, predominantly all black cast. Fantastic. Black Panther was one of the early black relatable comic book heroes. Finally, there's a black film and it's not focused on a white guy saves everybody kind of stick. Fantastic. I'm with you all the way to the bank, 100%. This film is something to motivate the black community. This is something that young black children can get behind. Whatever it is that you think's good like that, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But there are issues with the writing which misplace the driving narrative of that film. Now, sure, you can say stuff like, oh, I don't like Black Panther because the graphics aren't very good. The end fight is shallow and boring. The graphics at the main fight where you look up the mountainside feels unfinished. All the stuff with the rhinoceroses fighting looked like a cartoon. That is an execution issue. And I'm too old to care about that. Yeah, they didn't look great, but I don't really care. That doesn't bother me. I care about characters and the underlying narrative message of a story. And you have to make me care about the characters. So, all those things, like basically, oh, Black Panther looked like it was visually unfinished. Yeah, because they were making it at the same time they were making Avengers Endgame. Like, all the good animators were making Avengers Endgame. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me that Black Panther looked rough around the edges. However, Black Panther's not super well written because, number one, as I was saying a bit earlier before break, the emotional journey of Black Panther, they killed my father, I'm seeking revenge, will I allow myself to be given over to pure anger, or will I learn to forgive and understand and control my own emotions and be a worthy king? All that stuff, which is Black Panther's growth from anger into being like a super settled character, that happens in Civil War. That doesn't even happen in a Black Panther movie. So by the time the Black Panther movie starts, he is already fully reconciled his issues as a character. Which means he has everything you need him to be a great king, but not what you need to make an interesting story with character development. Welcome on in, everybody. Take a seat, take up a pitchfork. Everyone get ready to cancel me on Twitter because I'm walking you guys through a step-by-step analysis of why I don't think Black Panther's a very good movie. This is how I'm cancelling myself. So, by the way, overhyped. Do you know what? That's not even a... Now, yes, I do think it was overhyped, but I actually don't mind. So I think this is something to do with when you over-correctionalize or positive racial reinforcement. Like, it can be more of a problem than it can be a help. But if everybody is overhyping the film because they're just really, really fucking happy that there's an all-black Marvel's Avenger movie, I don't care. Good for them. Good for you. Good for all of us. Good for society. Yeah. No, I don't mind. I don't mind. If you want to, like, really bump a film because there's loads of black or coloured representation, good for you. I'm down. I'm actually down. That doesn't bother me at all. But as a result, overhyped, yes. Now, yes, white man, explain that to us. Guys, finally. Excuse me, I'm mildly brown. Guys, you're ever so slightly coffee-coloured, but to be honest, white brought up mostly white bread and white educated man, Mikey Mega Mega, is going to tell you the virtues of black cinema and black history. Finally, hearing it from a trustworthy source. But like, so his character arc, so everybody who's just come in, I was just explaining that what helps make a film interesting is having a good character arc, a hero's journey, getting over personal conflict, right? For King T'Challa, that all happened in Captain America Civil War. He went from the angry son whose dad got murdered into the chill, measured king who's able to rein in his emotions and not live off of hate. All of that happened in Civil War. So he has no emotional character arc in Black Panther. He does things and things happen, but he is never in conflict with himself. Everything that I was just talking about that made Civil War really good, about Iron Man realizing in Peter the very thing that he's fighting against, that is a character in conflict with their own self. It's brilliant. Black Panther, and now this is where I'm really going in terms of how the writing's not that good and how it's a detriment to the crux of the story. Black Panther has confused two often interlinked and two very similar issues, but the writing was bad enough that instead of being one, it was instead the other. Mikey, what do you mean? Black Panther at its core issues is not, now I know it wants to be, and I know it tries to be, and I know it thinks it was, but Black Panther at its core issues is not a story about racial divide. Black Panther at its core issues is a story about social mobility and social divide. In a nutshell, the Killmonger character takes over Wakanda. He doesn't take over Wakanda by going to war. He doesn't trick anyone. He doesn't backstab anyone. He doesn't do any... Now, sure, he's murdering people in a general sense, but in terms of the social structure and the rules of Wakanda, he is 100% legitimately taking the throne. He has the blood right. He wins the fight. He follows the ceremonies, and he legitimately takes that throne. I'm repeating myself. So what the rest of Black Panther becomes about is the social mobility issue. Because, and guys, we saw this happen recently with GameStop stocks. The people at the top have the system in place. Mikey, look, we're all gonna riot on the streets in a minute. The people at the top consistently have a system in place to stop the people in the bottom rising to the top. Because you don't want that. You don't actually want social mobility. Oh, you want to tell the little man, you want to tell everybody that come to America, the land of freedom, you could do anything if you really put your gumption into it, put your back into it, really just have a lot of steadfasted, stick-tivited-to-usness, or whatever it is from The Simpsons. But they never actually want you to rise out of your position and threaten theirs. They want you to think you can so that you go back to work every fucking day. They don't actually want you to do it. The entire system is like that. And look, I'm not being like conspiracy theory with Mikey here. I'm not like, the government's bad. I'm trying to give you context about a Marvel fantasy movie. So please take what I'm saying with a stick of butter and a rub of salt, okay? Like, I'm not trying to, we're not going to march on a government yet. But I'm trying to give you some context. So, a recent example is everybody knows that all the fat cats on Wall Street play with money for their pleasure. And it helped lead to an economics crash that saw millions of people lose their jobs and homes, right? But they get a pass. They get bailed out by the government because it's the people at the top, the big fat cats. So when we all started investing in GameStop, do you remember that? 2 weeks ago, feels like a million years ago. When we all started investing in GameStop, to bet against the Wall Street market because, hey, it turns out we can. That's something we've always been able to do, and we're able to get together on Reddit and do it just to fuck them over. When we do it, when the little guy does it and it affects Wall Street, what did they do? They changed the rules. They changed the rules because the current rules didn't suit them. And all of a sudden, you weren't allowed to trade GameStop for what? 3 days to take the edge off the bull? We live in a society. Anyway. I heard a Weatherspoon's boss sacked a lot of his employees in the first lockdown so he didn't have to pay him. Right, yep, I heard this as well. They realised it was going to be cheaper just to pay them their severance, except Weatherspoons employ on a 39-hour week. If you live in England, this is a thing. If a company employs you for 40 hours per week, you're a full-time employee and you have rights and benefits and severance. If a company employs you for 39 hours plus overtime, you are technically a part-time worker and they can get rid of you like that. So yeah, that was a big thing. That happened for loads of companies. Anyway. So, what are you getting at, Mikey? Well, Killmonger legitimately rises to the top. He is an example of social mobility. Once he gets to the top, everybody else who's at the top go out of their way to push him back down. King T'Challa lost the fight. He is no longer king. He is no longer worthy under the political system of Wakanda to bear the crown. So what happens? He gets a big fat bailout, doesn't he? By every other fucking character. No. We don't like it when you come up. You're from the ghetto. We don't want you to be king. No. We say you can be king, but we don't actually want you to be king. So we're going to do our best to put the actual king back. Social mobility issue. So what happened? And if you watch this film now, here's my other caveat. Number one, I know a lot of people love this film. Number two, I've kind of given you an example of what I don't have a problem with. A lot of the reasons why a lot of people love this movie or applaud it, I agree with. But we're talking about the actual narrative, which is problematic. So if you think I'm wrong, you can tell me, because I've only watched this film once at the cinema, which is a very long time ago. This is a lasting impression I've held on to, so I don't mind having a conversation. I'm just sharing my viewpoint. But Killmonger, once he gets to the top, as you're watching the film, he gets there legitimately. And the moment that Killmonger sits down in the throne, what really took me out of the film is it almost felt like the writers of the film had suddenly realized, shit, he's not a bad guy, but we have to make him a bad guy. So Killmonger, you can agree with him all the way until he sits on the throne. And then the moment he sits his ass on the throne, suddenly out of nowhere, this extra pre-roll ads are on. Oh my god, I've just had a pop-up telling me to run another advert. We'll wait. The moment he sits his bottom on the throne, out of nowhere, he's just like, we're going to share Wakandan technology with the rest of the world. I want to be king. The second he sits on the throne, he's like, we're going to share Wakandan technology with the rest of the world. I want to be king. Oh, by the way, we're sharing the technology only with the black communities, and we're going to murder loads and loads of white people. Women, children, I don't care. If they ain't black, break their back. If they ain't black, have them for a snack. I'm not a racist. I'm making it up on the spot. If anything that I've just said is linked to any form of actual historical racist banter, I apologized. I need to be safe here. Look, I have no hate in my heart. I'm just talking about ideas and a narrative for a fictional fantasy film. But look, if it ain't black, no. Anyway. So the moment he sits on a throne, he's just like, oh wait, by the way, also it's okay to kill and murder women and children. And that was so out of left field and so out of nowhere, it really just felt like the writers were just like, oh shit, we haven't made him enough of a bad guy. Quick, make him more bad, kill the women and children. There we go, now he sounds evil, yeah. Now everybody's going to be rooting for T'Challa to get back in the business. Right? Quick, type. So by the end of the film, they have their little, they have to have their battle and they have to have their Marvel Cinematic movie fight. And in the end, he beats up Killmonger. And they're both looking at the sunset together. They're like on a cliff somewhere. They're chilling out after the fight. Killmonger's mortally wounded. And your boy Black Panther is just like, we could heal you. He offers Killmonger a chance to heal his wounds. Fuck you. Fuck you. That is the man going out of his way to make sure that you stay down in your place. Now that I'm on top again and you are back down in your place on the lower social ladder where you belong, if you want, your generous leader, magnanimous, what's that word? King T'Challa will graciously offer to heal your wounds as long as it's on my terms and I'm king and you stay down there. I remember watching that in a cinema and I was fucking vibrating. I was just like, oh my God, this is making me so angry. And Killmonger, bless his fucking heart. Okay, look, the child murder wasn't cool. The child murder was a bit tight. But Killmonger is literally just like, you know what? Don't bother. He gives up because he has done everything in his power within the rules of the system to try to instigate change that he truly believes in. And all it got him was to see that actually the entire system is rigged and there's no place for somebody like him in that system. And he's just like, don't bother. And he dies. So like, I fucking hate what Black Panther represents. And that's not... Mikey, you hate black representation in movies. Of course not. Don't be stupid. Because Black Panther doesn't represent that. Black Panther tried to represent racial issues and racial inequality and racial injustice. What Black Panther actually represented was social immobility. And that film just makes me angry at the state of the world.